I have with me today veteran diplomat Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia. He was India's ambassador to Myanmar and several other countries. He is currently distinguished fellow at Gateway House. We are going to understand from him what exactly is happening in Myanmar, deep inside what are the issues that the junta there is facing, and also the fact that what India is planning to do in order to address that tension which is slowly emerging. We've heard recently from the Ministry of External Affairs that it had to temporarily shut down its consulate in Sittwe, and the entire staff has been shifted to Yangon. So let us understand the dynamics of India-Myanmar policy as well. Welcome to ABP Live, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nayanima.
So quickly start off, let's just understand from you, we had a similar interaction with you. For our viewers' benefit, let me tell them that we had an interaction with you in last year in May, but the situation has changed a lot. I mean, last year we saw India going in Myanmar, inaugurating the Sittwe port, and it seemed that the Kaladan project can, finally take off. But suddenly the situation has deteriorated. We've heard the MEA spokesperson saying that the situation is precarious, and our consulate in Sittwe had to be temporarily shut down. What is exactly going on in Myanmar?
You are absolutely right. The situation has been going from bad to worse. Whether it has been suddenly so, I cannot be sure, because I would trace the present deterioration to roughly about October 2023, which means since past 6 months. It was in October when Myanmar Army suffered its biggest and gravest defeat by the three brotherhood alliances in the northern Shan State near the Chinese border.
Yes.
And since then, other defeats have followed in. Without going into the whole story, to the immediate point that you made, and this is in southern Myanmar, in the Rakhine province, the battles are going on near the Sittwe city. Already several military bases have been captured by the Arakan army, that is the opposition or the resistance group. And there is fear that Sittwe could fall. And it was in that context, in my view, the Indian embassy and the Indian government did the right thing by closing down the consulate and taking their personnel into Yangon. So, yes, there is deterioration, there is a steady deterioration, and this has been going on for the past 6 months.
So now we are also hearing that, this resistance that the military there is facing is comprised of this Brotherhood Alliance, which is comprised of several, ethnic groups. Now, how do you think they are operating, and how is it that the military there is facing defeat?
So this is actually an old story, and this has to be understood or appreciated with reference to the fact that of the total 57 million population of Myanmar, the biggest group is the Bamar group, or sometimes they are called Burmese group, and they are 68% of people. And the rest of them, that is 32%, are of various ethnic groups. And there has been a tension from the beginning, from 1948 when Burma became independent, between the majority group and the ethnic groups, and also among the ethnic groups. All the efforts to make Myanmar into a full-fledged nation state have failed. And as a result, the central government always has had somewhat tenuous control and links with the ethnic groups, which are, by the way, they are present in the peripheral areas of Myanmar. In the center, you have Bamars, and then the rest of them are there in the border regions. So now what is happening is, with the Myanmar military becoming weaker, the ethnics living in the peripheral areas have asserted themselves. And there is a very meaningful question hidden in your question as to where and how these people are getting their strength.
Right.
I think with regard to the Shan state, it can be safely said that they received considerable strength and support from China in terms of arms, in terms of guidance, in terms of political support. And as a result, this three brotherhood alliance which comprises the only three groups, which is MNDDA, TNLA, and AA. These three
the
groups,
Arakan Army.
Arakan Army, they have managed to spearhead the defeat over or on the Myanmar army. So this is the central point.
Sir, if I can, sorry, interrupt you there. Why do you think China is, supporting them, giving them all kinds of funds and weapons? Is China against the military there?
That's a thought-provoking question. First of all, these groups, particularly two of them, the Tang group and the Kokang group, they are of Chinese ethnicity. They have a long history of close relationship with China. They flourish and they operate on the basis of China's continuous support. And there were all kinds of illegal things that were going on, the gaming scams, which really victimized a very large number of Chinese citizens.
Okay.
And this was not getting stopped or prevented by the Myanmar government. So Chinese government used the ethnic groups to take firm action against them. But beyond that, are Chinese fully happy and comfortable with the Myanmar government? Experts do not think so. Okay. I think there are tensions and differences between Naypyidaw and Beijing. Please note that Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, Commander-in-Chief, has not yet been invited to visit Beijing.
Yes, that's a point to be noted.
And most importantly, basically the coup has really disrupted China's plans for stability in Myanmar, and China's ambitious projects of infrastructural development in that country, and trying to seek the exit onto the Indian Ocean through the Chao Phu port, the deep sea port. So in effect, they are not very happy with the military, and yet they know that military still is a major power broker, power wielder, and player in the Myanmar drama, and therefore so they are dealing with them. They are very much managing them.
So now, if I can ask you, I get to hear from experts in Myanmar that what is happening there is unprecedented, that resistance forces taking over certain parts of the country and the army facing defeat. We also read a few reports in local media in Myanmar that some of the soldiers of Tatmadaw, they are defecting and trying to come to India. How far are these true? What is your assessment?
I think these are fairly well documented developments now at each major rivers in the north, in the south, in the west near the Indian border, and in the east near the Thai border. There have been several specific instances where large number of Myanmar troops surrendered after some fight or after no fight, and then they were given safe passage to the neighboring area. So, for example, in India's case, a fairly large number of them came to Mizoram, and then they were returned back to the Myanmar army. And similarly, in Mayawadi, which is the latest episode on the Thai border, 700-800 people surrendered, the troops surrendered, and then eventually they had to be rescued back to the central Myanmar. So, this is the fact. Basically, what is happening is that, before the coup, Myanmar army was supposed to be one of the biggest armies in Southeast Asia. Okay. Nobody knew for sure, but it was estimated that there were at least 350,000 troops. Now, the experts who have been following these things very carefully, their estimate is that the size has gone down to about 100,000 troops, of which only perhaps 70,000 are combat troops. So you can see the climb down, the weakening of the army, and this is fully reinforced by the fact that they have now passed a conscription law, and now they are compelling citizens to join the army. And this has in turn caused serious discontent within the country as well.
Correct.
So clearly, there is a situation of shortage of personnel, and there is also clearly a decline in morale, in the fighting will of the troops.
So is this the reason why we just, read a report by the Human Rights Watch that the military there is now employing the Rohingyas within their ranks?
This is part of the tactics, using these people, these poor, unfortunate people, as human shield. There is a clear shortage of positions within the army. But I think I would like to bring in an interesting angle here. Many experts had thought that if Myanmar military begins to suffer on the battlefield, then their desire for dialogue and for a peaceful settlement
Right.
would increase. Paradoxically, that does not seem to have happened. And there are hardly any indications that Naypyidaw is now more willing for a dialogue with the resistance, with the opposition. So you have a situation where neither the resistance nor the army is showing any signs for a peaceful dialogue. And therefore, unfortunately, this unwise insistence on resolving political differences through the force of arms might continue in the near future.
Well, that's interesting, sir, because, there is this thing also going on that maybe after this, the military will probably again open the doors for elections and, give the other party, the democratic forces some chance. And that's what India had also been pushing for. And let me come to you on another aspect, sir, the ASEAN 5-point consensus. Now, that's going to also be 3 years of that, which also says, a plan like this, that, where they can have the same kind of model of governance as they used to have before. So, are you saying all that, that potential is not there in the horizon right now?
So let me address both the questions. As far as the elections are concerned, the army tried to plan elections last year, and then it came to the conclusion that security situation does not permit it, and they had to abandon that plan. Once again, the army is talking about holding elections in parts of the country. That is where there is relative peace, they want to hold elections, and leaving elections to be held in other parts at a later date. But I think this is really not practical, because at the end of the day, you need to have free, fair and credible elections. And when, multiple mutinies are going on, multiple battle fronts are opened, I don't quite seriously see how elections really can take place. As to the ASEAN's efforts at mediation, they started off very well in April 2021. That is just 2 or 3 months after the coup which took place in February. At that time, they developed a 5-point peace formula, and this was accepted by the Myanmar government. The senior general Min Aung Hlaing was there and he accepted it. But within days or weeks of his return, they resiled away from that. And since then, while ASEAN under different presidencies have tried their best to push it, they have really not achieved very much in the past 3 years. So essentially, ASEAN peace approach also stands completely stalemated in my view.
Okay. So, but then if that is the situation, because that was what, countries like India and others were thinking, that probably it will be the ASEAN that will bring some sort of normalcy on track in Myanmar. But if you are saying that, even that is not taking off as was desired, then what is the solution? How do you see this going on, and the fact that what is happening to the other end, what is happening to the democratic forces there? Aung San Suu Kyi, we keep hearing that she is under detention. where she's also, she's also getting old. Do you see a new generation of democratic representatives coming up there?
Yes, so ASEAN we have discussed. I can also say that the UN efforts have also not borne fruit. Now, of course, UN Secretary General has appointed a new Special Envoy for Myanmar, the former Foreign Minister of Australia, Julie Bishop. So maybe something could be happening under her stewardship. With regard to what else can or should be done, because clearly if this matter cannot be resolved on better ground, then the return to conference room has to be done.
Right.
And there, I can share with you that I recently was at a major conference of regional experts in Bangkok. And there, the ideas which were coming up could be very briefly shared here. The idea basically is that if you select ASEAN countries and Myanmar's neighbors, they should collaborate together to push the idea of dialogue. By that they mean essentially ASEAN countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Laos, which is the chair. Some of these could be involved with the 5 major neighbors of Myanmar, which is China, India, Bangladesh, Thailand, and Laos is already there. So if they collaborate together, this might be a little bit better, because otherwise everything, the entire field is left open only to one country, which is China. Now, even this combined can have some chance or some hope of success if the main stakeholders in Myanmar are willing for a reconciliation,
Right,
for a
exactly.
settlement. If either side or both sides want nothing but total victory through the route of arms, then I'm afraid nobody has a magic wand in his or her hands.
So as what you have said, that there is this consensus probably building up that few of the ASEAN partners, along with Myanmar's immediate neighbors, can push them for a dialogue. But do we know who's there on the other side? I mean, with the junta, who will sit across the table? And of course, I'll come to the purely on India-Myanmar ties. But for India, do you think India will also be keen in being a participant in this kind of a framework?
I cannot speak for the government because I do not work any longer for them. And this initiative that I spoke actually is more about the track 2 experts, people who truly understand and who have followed for a lifetime this very complex problem. So sometimes private independent experts can prepare the ground and then the governments can take over. That is the calculation and the hope here. But as I said, the biggest condition for this is for the relevant parties in Myanmar to indicate that they are interested in peace. If they are not interested in peace, the world cannot help them. Your second question, who are these parties? And I think that is fairly well known. I think apart from the SAC or the military government, which will be a major player, you have roughly about a dozen ethnic groups which are operative in north, south, east and west. They are all recognized. They have almost each of them their political organization and they have their armed organizations. So it is possible to envisage a guest list.
They have the political heads too.
Yes, a guest list for a dialogue or a conference where at best the good office holders can act as the bridge till such time when direct dialogue could begin among various combatants. That is the plan. But as I said, this is all largely at the level of the independent experts.
Correct. Now, sir, coming to India's position, we heard External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar saying that, India is left with very limited option, but to eventually scrap the free movement regime and finally to fence that entire border of about 600, more than 600 kilometers, 1600 kilometers, I'm sorry. How do you think that is possible? Because whenever that topic has come up, we've heard voices from the Northeast stating that this will disrupt the dynamics there. There are families, who live across the border, and then, this will completely and again might see the resurgence of those, insurgency groups in Northeast. What is your assessment? Because, you've dealt with that.
I would directly answer this by saying that the government's steps, both of the decision to fence the entire 1643 kilometers border and to suspend the free border movement regime, are essentially defensive measures. They would not have been taken, in my view, if the situation in Myanmar had not become so unstable and threatening. When a conflict is going on the other side the border, then people have a tendency to run for safety on our side. Besides, all kinds of wrong people intensify the illegal activities, arms, smuggling, drugs and the rest of it.
Okay.
So, the government seems to have taken these measures in order to defend the interests of the nation. But I would say that there should be one further step in this, and which is to, do a special outreach to the northeast region of India. I think it's very important for us to explain the rationale behind these measures so that we are able to enlist the support, particularly of the border states, that is Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram. But if you allow me, I also have just 2 or 3 very small suggestions for role by India, because this is one part where we are ensuring our security. The second part is that India needs to expand its reach and talk to some of the players which are now controlling our the border region on the Myanmar side. So, players like Arakan Army leadership, NUG, the National Unity Government, Chin National Front. These are some of the actors with whom we have to have good contact and communication, even as while we keep deepening and strengthening our official contacts with the Myanmar government. If we want more influence, it's important to be in touch with those who are now wielding real authority in that country. And then I think while doing this, we must also keep strengthening people to people ties. It may sound a bit odd that things are unsettled and we are talking of people to people, but we must remember that people in Myanmar have a very special place in their heart for India. The Buddhist connection is very important. And at this time when there is a calamity, perhaps there is a stronger desire to go and visit Buddhist monuments in India. And then 2 million strong Indian diaspora is there. So, if we have these regular flights between Delhi and Yangon, I think Air India is running it, we must maintain them and we should do what we can to help the people because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are suffering immensely. And finally, I think this is my favorite suggestion, which is that while in India, the number of Myanmar experts is rather small, but there are some very, very good people who have devoted their time to this country. And I think they need to get together and perhaps produce a possible peace formula for this very complex problem.
So, one of the recommendations that you suggested sounded very interesting, but I wanted to know what's the historical background to it by reaching out to these ethnic groups, right? We have been doing that historically. Did we stop that? Why do you think we are now sort of shying away in engaging them as well?
Well, yes, we have had linkages with them, but they were more, at an informal level. And then from roughly about the late 80s, when the Myanmar Army took almost full control of the country, barring some of the traditionally opposed areas like Karen's. So, they were running the country with the exception of some of the border regions, but on our side, they were fully in control. So we were perfectly happy, the government of India, dealing with the Myanmar government. It was the full-scale legitimate government of the country, and it remained so until the coup. In fact, it held twice the elections, and the third election triggered the whole political upheaval. So with Myanmar government controlling the whole situation, India had no problem dealing with them and collaborating with them and developing very close cooperative ties. But now the situation is completely different. Now the country is virtually divided into two parts, one where military still rules and the other where the resistance rules. Therefore, India has to change its policy.
Sir, and now my last question to you will be, I know, in a sense that India is now going to face one of the most decisive elections by the, that starts this month. Once we know whichever new government comes into place, do you think Myanmar will be in the larger scheme of things when it comes to India's foreign policy? And if not, it should be because, while we are more bothered about, we do a neighborhood first, of course, then there is Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, we see somehow less focus on Myanmar. Do you think whichever new government comes in, Myanmar needs to be the focus and that issue needs to be addressed, and how that can be done?
There's also a thought-provoking action, I think, question, and I would say, looking at post-elections foreign policy of India, what would not change is India's Indo-Pacific strategy and Act East policy, and undoubtedly Myanmar forms an integral part of these two approaches towards east of India. Myanmar has received a considerable degree of attention, but now perhaps it deserves more because the situation is uniquely difficult and complex. It cannot be played by the basic principles of policy that we followed from the end 80s to 2021. And that is why I think we need to visualize as to what will happen in the next 8 to 12 months in this country. Will there be a protracted conflict between the military and ethnic groups, and maybe even a kind of clashes between the ethnic groups? Will that be a scenario? Or there could be a major defeat for the military junta? Can, for example, of the three major towns, can Mandalay fall? If that happens, and if NUG were to go and establish a parallel government there, can things change dramatically? Right. Or third scenario, possibly that the army takes some radical decisions. It might decide to change its leadership, or it might decide to use what I call the Suu Kyi trump card, that is, release her and say we are ready to go back to 2021 situation. Okay. So any of this is possible, and my only plea is that through an intelligent study of Myanmar's history and the current state of play, we all need to get together and project what might be the most plausible scenario in the coming year.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much, sir. That was Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia telling us what could be the dynamics once a new government comes into place between India and Myanmar, and why Myanmar needs to be in the focus in India's foreign policy. With Sanchit on camera, this is Nayanima Basu for ABP Live. Thank you for watching the interaction.